Welcome to the Black Boy Fly podcast, supported by the Conscious Convo Network. I'm your host, Dr. Isaac Addae. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. It's been a while since I've connected with you all. Let me just tell you, life has been lifing. But today we're going to talk about encouraging words for difficult times because I've been hearing a lot about what's happening in the world. I've been hearing a lot about what's happening with people around me. And I was inspired to just share some thoughts about how we can all navigate challenging times. But before we jump into that, let me just give you a little bit of context in terms of how we got here. If you're new to the podcast, this came out of my book, Black Boy Fly, which I released in 2021. Started recording several podcast episodes and we were having a lot of fun with it. And guess what? I had to take some time off, deal with some personal challenges, some professional challenges, work on some family things. I took a nice little break, but I've still been writing, still been thinking about things that I want to share on the podcast. And recently, with some conversations I've had with Black men and other people around me, I decided, you know what, Isaac, it's time to get back to the audience and share some inspiration and share some thoughts and just talk about what's happening in the world, because there's a lot happening in the world. So people around me have been coming and sharing some things that they've been dealing with. I've also been dealing with some things too. We all are dealing with some things. And what I'm realizing, if you haven't already, is we're living in some really challenging times. It seems as though there's conflict in every corner of the earth. It seems like in the world that we live in today, there are natural disasters and economic disasters, and there's just a lot going on, and people are stressed. People are worried. I've also been stressed and I've also been worried. It's part of why I took some time away from the podcast, just to navigate life and all that comes with it. And so, if you're feeling as though you're struggling, you're not alone. We're all going through something. It may not look like it. You may come across somebody, you may see that person and say, it looks like they've got it all together. They don't. People look at me all the time and they say, Isaac, you look like you have it all figured out. I don't. They often say, Isaac, man, you look like everything's going perfect in your life. It's absolutely not perfect. I deal with my own challenges too. We're all human. We're all experiencing this life in different ways, and we're just dealing with difficult times. Businesses are challenged. Entrepreneurs are challenged. Individual people are challenged. There's so many things happening in the world around us. It's causing people to be stressed. People are suffering. People are challenged. And so I've just had some recent random conversations with people that I'm close to, and even people that I'm really not that close to at all, who we just happen to cross paths and we get into a conversation and we quickly get to a sense of suffering or a sense of struggle, what one another are dealing with. And I thought, you know what, this is a topic that I'd love to address with the audience, because it just seems like there's so many people out there in the world today that are just dealing with challenges. And many of us, myself included, are dealing with a lot of things that other people may not even be aware of. I've got people in my circle that are going through some challenges and they're quiet about it. We talk, and so I know, but a lot of people don't really know what they're dealing with. I'm even having my own things that I'm working through. The whole world doesn't know about it. So we're living in some challenging times, and because of that, I just wanted to offer a sense of encouragement to anybody who is facing something that they think that they can't overcome, or facing something and feeling as if they're alone and just don't really know what's next, or don't really know how to navigate what's next. So I'll talk about this in terms of me and how I have been able to just work through the things that I've had to endure. Life has been really great on many fronts, but then there have been some challenges as well. And I just want to be real and honest about that. And so, let's unpack some of this. For me, the number one thing that I start with every day is grounding myself in a sense of faith. And faith looks different for everybody, right? And so I want to challenge you to think about, what is it from a faith perspective that you need to do every day that will help you get grounded. For me, I read some devotionals every day and I read scripture every day. My wife bought me some incredible devotionals. And so it's a 365-day book, and there are things that you can read and reflect on each day. That feeds my soul. that is how I go into a space of grounding, because each day is going to bring something good, maybe something not so good. How do you navigate all that comes with each day if you don't have a sense of grounding in something bigger than yourself? And so for me, I try to begin each day grounding myself in faith, really getting rooted in the sense of my purpose and my why, and getting clear on my priorities. This helps me because the world that we live in will push and pull and toss you around in terms of what we think is important. But if you go into your day with a sense of grounding in terms of faith, in terms of purpose, in terms of your deeper sense of why, I think that that helps you then navigate the rest of the day and the challenges and the ebb and flow, and do it in a way where you can get through that day. So for yourself, think about what is, from a faith perspective, the thing that's going to help you stay grounded and rooted each day. What are those core priorities? What is your why, and how are you leaning into those things before you lean into the things that the world wants you to focus on the moment that you get up and get moving throughout the day? So a sense of faith and a sense of purpose are probably the first things that I would say we should all think about as we try and navigate challenging times. Because no matter what's happening in the world, if you have a deep sense of faith in something greater than yourself, a sense of hope for a better future, I believe that that's something that can help you develop an enduring spirit. We're all going to deal with things. Many times it's unexpected, right? We have people in East Tennessee and other parts of the country that have dealt with a natural disaster, and their lives were turned upside down within a matter of hours. That probably was not on their vision board this year. And so that is a level of suffering that may be very, very difficult to overcome if we're not rooted in something bigger than ourselves. So think about what is your way of getting yourself centered in faith, and thinking about your purpose and what's connected to your larger sense of priorities for you, not necessarily externally in terms of the world, but internally. What are those things that are connected to you? I think that's a great starting point. Something that really helped me last year specifically, and this year as well, is having a heightened sense of what self-care means and what my self-care routines are and how I basically take care of myself. Something that I'll talk about in some episodes to come is healing. I spent the larger part of 2023 embarking on a healing journey. That was very transformational for me, and it has shifted my perspective on the world in a way where I now look at problems and struggle differently. Because I went through that healing journey, I was able to unpack a lot of trauma that I experienced from my childhood, from my adult life, from just navigating the world as a Black man in professional settings and in academic settings and just in the environment in general. Getting through a lot of that through therapy built a sense of armor for me in terms of protection from just the ebb and flow and the push and pull of the world, and how things are just get thrown at you. So, that's one form of self-care that I engage in. Fitness would be another. I walk, I run, I bike when I get the opportunity to, when I have time. Getting that cardiovascular fitness in is another piece of my self-care routine that really helps me stay rooted and grounded in a deeper sense of self, and just being connected to who I am. And that helps me in difficult times because I have a way to get that energy out whenever I'm trying to work through something, or whenever I'm going through something. Another thing I enjoy doing is reading. I read pretty much anything. If I'm sitting in the doctor's office waiting to be seen at a visit and there's a magazine sitting on the counter, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to read it. It really doesn't matter what it is. That is something that just settles my mind when I'm able to absorb information. And writing as well. I love to express myself in a written form. every morning when I read my devotionals, I'm journaling alongside what I'm reading. And so again, I'm just sharing some things that help me, right, from a self-care perspective. But what does that look like for you? How do you engage in self-care? How do you prioritize self-care? Because the world is going to throw all types of things at you, but I feel as though we have to be caring for ourselves no matter what, so that when things do shift out of our control, we have a way to get back to a sense of calm and grounding through routines and practices that benefit us. I know a lot of people have a lot of different type of self-care routines, but there was a point in time in my life where I had very poor self-care habits. I didn't actually really care for myself as well as I should. Now at the age of 43, I'm realizing it's part of my ability to navigate today is to think about what is self-care. So for me, in the middle of my workday, I'll take a break and I'll go for a walk. Or if I have a call that's not a virtual call or an in-person meeting, but it's a phone call, I will likely go for a walk and take that call. So I'm getting 15 and 20-minute walks throughout the day while also working, trying to kill two birds with one stone. But again, feeding my soul and feeding my spirit by being outdoors and being in nature and getting that sunlight. I could sit at my desk the entire day, but I try to be intentional and say, where can I squeeze in my self-care habits? So I love doing walk and talks, or taking a walk and taking a meeting, taking a call while I'm doing it. I walk to go grab lunch, or just to walk and clear my head. I mean, that has been an invaluable thing for me. It's just to get my body moving. So think about what works for you. What does self-care look like for you? Define it, embrace it, build habits around it, because these are the things that I think help us overcome the world and overcome the challenges and overcome the hard times. Something else that I would say, in addition to faith and purpose and self-care, is what does your support system look like? This is I think something that can be challenging, because the world that we live in today, even though we're more connected than we've ever been through digital devices and apps and whatnot and social media, we're also very isolated. It's kind of weird. We're connected, but we're isolated in terms of our physical sense, right? We're digitally linked to one another, but I don't see my own friends physically as much as I would like to, or my own family as much as I would like to. It seems as though the ebb and flow of the world has us in such disconnected spaces. So even though we're connected digitally, our physical presence isn't there. I think that plays into your support system, or what could be the lack thereof. I try my best to reach out to the people around me and check in and see how people are doing. But I'll admit, life gets really busy with work and family and just all the things. And you don't always get those opportunities. And you could go a week or two or three, or a month or two or three, without having seen those people that you're connected to, outside of maybe your core or immediate family that you engage with day to day. And so that piece of that sense of support from your support system, it could be missing. You could be feeling isolated. That's something that you have to reinforce. That's something that you have to think about. How do you rebuild or re-engage? Because it does help you navigate those difficult times. I had a really good conversation with both my parents within the past week, and it was refreshing to just talk to mom and talk to dad and hear what they've got going on. My wife and I have lots of dialogue throughout the day, and that's obviously, a built-in support system. Even colleagues, having conversations with colleagues. I just went to lunch this week with a colleague who's a friend, and we had some really good conversations, and we're able to offer support to one another just with how we're navigating the workplace and just navigating the world as Black men. So think about your support system. What is your support system? Who's in it? What does it look like? You're not alone, right? Many people do feel alone. I hear that often. Hey, I'm by myself. Nobody can identify with my struggle. But there are people around you. Are you talking to them? Are you sharing with them what you're going through? Or are you bearing those burdens alone? Oftentimes we do. We may be ashamed of what we're experiencing. We may feel as though nobody can relate. We may not want to plague other people with our problems and our concerns. But our support system is truly exactly what it sounds like. People who were there to help you get through whatever you may be experiencing. So lean into that support system. So people are struggling. I've been through it. There are things that I'm still working through. I see a lot of people around me who are going through things. The world is just really, really heavy. And honestly, I don't know why. It just is. We're seeing war being fought. We're seeing natural disasters take place. We're seeing financial markets shift. Businesses are downsizing. Startups are having a harder time raising capital. Young people are dealing with unprecedented challenges. We're seeing upticks in violence in communities. It's like we're in a crisis of some sort. And we've got to really think about, how do we care for ourselves? How do we care for one another? How do we navigate what's happening in the world around us and still have a sense of wholeness and still have a sense of being rooted and connected to this world in a meaningful way? So I really want you to think about that. Check in with the people that are around you. Open up, talk, share. Think about who it is that you need to connect to that's in your support system so that you all can support one another as you're going through life's challenges. Again, people are struggling, and I really want to record this episode to offer encouraging words for difficult times, because it's hard. I see it on people's faces. I've just been shocked by the sheer number of conversations I've had over the past few months, and hearing the things that people are dealing with in their personal lives, in their professional lives. It's hard. And if you're going through something that's difficult and you feel as though, you're at your wit's end, just know that you're not alone. Think about the people that love you. Think about the people that are around you. Reach out, speak up, get the support that you need. Find your support system, your accountability partners, whatever that looks like. Think about your self-care routines. What do you need to do on a day-to-day basis to fill your cup? Because existing in the world as we know it today, with the busyness of the world and all of the demands that come from our personal and professional lives, it can be really, really draining. We have to restore ourselves and get back to a sense of wholeness. And it really just comes back to, why are we doing what we're doing? What are we grounded in that's bigger than ourselves that gives us that sense of hope? How are we caring for ourselves on a regular basis and building good habits around self-care? And what does our support system look like, and who's in it? Because we're not alone, even when we think we're alone. 2023 was a challenging year for me. There were some wins, there were some losses, there were some incredible things that happened. There were some really difficult moments that I had to experience and work through. But those set the stage for me to be able to thrive in 2024. And I feel as though I am thriving. But guess what? I haven't been able to escape problems and struggle and suffering in some ways. And I've come to realize that this life is always going to have both. There are always going to be really, really incredible things that happen. There are also going to be challenges. And as long as you understand those two things will exist and they're part and parcel of this world, then you just think about, how do you need to build your life and design a system that allows you to navigate no matter what comes your way. So as I mentioned, I start my mornings with my devotionals. I look at my devotionals as my armor. That's my armor for the day. When I start my day, I dive into my devotionals. That's me putting on my armor so that I can go out and engage with the world and overcome the day. And so that no matter what happens, good, bad, or in between, I've got my armor on. I've done what I needed to do to be able to go out and engage with the world. So how are you putting on your armor each day? How are you taking care of yourself each day? And who are those people that are around you that are a part of your support system that are going to help you find a way forward and endure? Suffering and struggle is a part of life, but it's not permanent in terms of enduring forever. Things do get better. I had a mentor back during my internship years in college that said it's always that when it, what did she say? Oh yeah. Storms happen and then the sun comes out, right? you think about going through storms, and you think about how those storms can be very dark, and the times that you're experiencing those storms, it can feel as though those storms never end. But just like in the natural world, storms pass and then things sprout back up. The sun comes back out, and it's as if the storm never happened. And then randomly another storm just shows up. So whatever you may be enduring, whatever you may be going through, suffering through, struggling with, just know that it's temporary. There are solutions, there are people, there are support systems, there are resources to help you navigate the things that you're trying to navigate. There will be good times ahead. It just may not feel like it right now. And I'm sharing this just based on, again, conversations that I've had recently with, older people, middle-aged people, younger people, some things that I've processed and had to deal with and still working through. It just seems like sometimes those clouds linger for very long periods of time, and you wonder, will those clouds ever go away? Yes, they do. And even in those clouds, to me, I look at it as it's a blessing of some sort. That's how I've been able to shape my mind and reframe my thinking around struggle and around suffering. I look at it as, in some way, I'm benefiting, I'm gaining, I'm growing. Something is going to come out of this. That's just what allows me to be able to get through. Whenever I run into an obstacle or roadblock, I say to myself, well, I'm going to get something out of this experience. I don't know what it is, but it's going to count for something further down the road. So my goal for right now is to just endure as best as I can, and then think about what comes next, because there's always something that's going to come next. They call it peaks and valleys of life, right? You hit the mountaintop, and then you go right back down into the valley, and then you hit the mountaintop and you go right back down into the valley. The best way that I've heard this described, and I can't remember where I heard it, but it was the heartbeat. If you look at a picture of a heartbeat, there are spikes up and down. And then if you look at an image of someone who is no longer breathing, it's a flat line. And so the person basically was saying, if you're seeing those spikes up and down, that means you're alive, and that means you're living. And with the moment you don't see anything on registering on that chart, and it's just a straight flat line, you're no longer living, which means that life is going to come with those peaks, and it's going to come with those valleys, and it's just part of this journey. And we just have to do our best to endure. So again, think about, for anybody who's suffering or struggling with anything, think about faith and purpose, and what are your priorities, and how are those things helping you see a bigger sense of hope, and helping you push forward and thinking about a better future and better times ahead. Think about self-care and what it is that you need to do for yourself on a daily basis to fill your cup. And then think about your support system. These are all of the things that I think about each day that have helped me get through some challenging times. I feel as though I'm at my best at life, but even at my best, there's stuff to work through. But it wouldn't be this way if I wasn't really connected from a faith perspective and a purpose and priorities perspective, and I didn't have good self-care routines, and I didn't have a good support system. I want that for you all. I want you all to be able to fly high in whatever way that means for you personally and professionally, even if you're going through really difficult times. I believe that we're all born to fly. I believe that we all have greatness within us. And sometimes the trials are just what they say are setbacks, right? Or things that are going to propel you forward. So it feels like you may be pulled back when really you're just being prepared to be launched forward. So don't give up hope. Keep hope alive. Fly high. Know that you're destined for greatness. And just reflect on some of the things that I've shared. I'm really happy that I was able to get back and think about some things that I wanted to share with you all. I've got more that I want to share, so stay tuned for some more episodes coming up. This is the Black Boy Fly podcast with Dr. Isaac Addae.